Hey, what's up, everybody? We are live coming to you from Denver, Colorado. It is noon here on Thursday, September 13th, and thanks for being with us. This will be a Facebook Live. We're going to record it, put it back on YouTube later, and we're doing monthly webinars for free. We're not charging for these, and we're just going to explore a couple different topics as it relates to selling on Amazon, particularly selling books, and try and help you run a little bit more of an efficient business, as well as focus on some tactics and strategies for scaling. If you're watching this, we actually do have, I'm going to make a little plug for a Turn the Page Masterminds. So Travis and Jeff with Acceleralist, we ran a Turn the Page conference in LA earlier this year, and I think we had about 30 to 35 people attend. It was awesome. We're going to keep doing those throughout. We'll do one of those a year. We're also going to do some smaller mastermind events. So we're going to be down in Phoenix. Matthew will be there, Travis and Jeff from Acceleralists. We've got a bulk bookseller from Denver coming in, David. You guys will meet him. We've got a bulk bookseller from California as well coming in. Reezy will be making an appearance, and a couple other special guests as well. So we still have 6 tickets left as of this afternoon, and you can find there's some links in the Book Flipper Facebook group, or you can email me at thebookflipper@gmail.com to see what's going on there and see if there's any tickets left. So we'll do a social meetup. It's going to be limited to 20 people. We're going to meet up on Thursday, October 4th, down in Glendale, just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. And then on the 5th, we're going to spend the entire day going through ways to scale your business, as well as ways to be a little more efficient in how you hire people, set up your processes, etc. So this will be limited to 20 people. We've got 5 or 6 speakers. It's designed to be more of an intimate networking event. And it's not for beginners. We're not going to be discussing some of the basic strategies. We're going to be going more in depth. So that's it for the plug. Let's jump in here. I do have some slides. We're going to go through a bit of a PowerPoint deck. I want to explain what I do when it comes to pricing, and then we will answer your questions. So if you have any ISBNs you'd like us to look up, go ahead and post those below. If you're on YouTube later, you can just drop me an email. I'll have my email up here in a minute, and we'll follow up and give you our 2 cents on where we price it. Now, before we jump into pricing, I do want to step back and say pricing can be a sensitive topic. It is an art and it's a science. There's no one size fits all. And for every time you hear someone say, hey, this is the rule you should absolutely follow, never price above Amazon, for example, you're always going to hear counter examples. It's like English grammar, I before E, except after all these rules. And then there's a bunch of other exceptions as well. So we'll teach you the general principles, and we'll kind of get into that. But keep in mind that this is a moving target. This is something that I'm always trying to tweak. I would not consider myself an expert when it comes to pricing. I know what works, and I'm always trying to tweak my strategies as well to be a little more efficient and to squeeze a little more profit out of my books. So I want to just clarify, if there's any of you who think you're pricing experts, I'd love to have you on. And like I said, it's an art and a science, and we'll jump in with there. Matthew Osborne, my business partner, is on this call as well. He's going to be watching Facebook. There's a little bit of a lag from when I'm talking to what I see, so I'm not going to be able to pick off your questions in real time. If you do have them, comment. Matthew will relay those back over to me through Slack, and we will jump in. So without further ado, let's jump in. So the title of this presentation, and if any of you went to Greg Murphy's Bust Proof Live event 2 years ago, I think last summer in 2017, this may look familiar, and I'm definitely repurposing some content with a few updates as well. So again, let's jump in. This is how to price like a boss, and you are the boss, so you get to price however you like. Disclosures, I used to work in medical devices, and all the doctors that got up had to say who sponsors them, who do they work for, make sure we have any conflict of interest out of the way. So it's kind of a tip of the hat to the old days there. But I run a software called eFlip. If you're looking to buy books online and resell them, it's great for finding textbooks. It's also great for finding mispriced inventory. Scout IQ, a database app for the US. We're looking to go elsewhere. And if you want to register interest in your country, go to scoutiq.co/countries, plural. And I also run a blog at thebookflipper.com. I've not done a lot of content lately. For those that follow my channel, I've had a little one in my life. We got a little 6-month-old. They'll be 6 months next week, actually. So time is flying. I've been spending more time there working on software as well. And I haven't forgotten about the blog. I'll get back to it. If you ever want to reach out to me directly, you can hit me up on Facebook Messenger or drop me an email. I'm always happy to answer some questions, or if you have any cool ideas to partner, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me at thebookflipper@gmail.com. One other plug before we jump into it. This business, books aren't going anywhere. There's definitely some counterfeit stuff going on in the industry. There is a push toward ebooks, which comes and goes every couple of months, it seems like. But textbooks and real books aren't going anywhere tomorrow. I don't know where they'll be in 5 years, but we're going to try and make hay while the sun shines, that's for sure. It's going to come down to relationships. When I started, I was going to thrift stores and libraries like everybody else, and I was kind of shy, didn't want to tell people what I was doing. As you get into it, don't be afraid to tell people what you're doing. One, driving a forklift is really awesome. I got to rent one for a day and mess around with a big shipment of books. And then all these books piled up in my living room were the result of a relationship. Someone reached out and said, hey, I've got too much inventory. I can't handle it. Can you handle a truckload of textbooks and sell them on consignment? Absolutely. So don't be afraid to tell people what's going on. I love selling on consignment. That's kind of the main piece of our book business at this point, is selling for other people. So don't be afraid to tell people what you're doing. Matthew is putting a couple ISBNs in here. So if you're putting those in, we'll get to those at the end and walk through after we go through some of the principles here. So some of the disclaimers. Number one, we talk about pricing like a boss. You are the boss, and you can run your business like Michael Scott if you prefer, in an old Dunder Mifflin paper company that's also going out of business or out of style. So we're going to give you the principles that we use in our business, but at the end of the day, you get to make the rules. It's your business. There's no one right way to price, and I think we're going to show that and illustrate that as we get into it. We just alluded to it, but there is no perfect price. You're either going to price something too low and sell it too quickly, and you left money on the table, or you price it too high, and maybe it sells eventually, or maybe you have to reprice it, and it takes extra time. On the one hand, if you're selling things quickly, you're going to make your money back quickly. You're going to have cash flow to go and invest in more books. If you are pricing a little bit higher and selling a little bit more slowly, you're going to probably get a little more profit. So the trick is finding that sweet spot somewhere in the middle, and there is no perfect price, but we're going to try and give you the principles to pick some good prices. Again, we talked about this in the intro. They're more like guidelines than actual rules. Again, it's an art and a science. There's some feel to it. There's a few rules that I'll give you that we use in our business. But at the end of the day, pricing, like I said, is a very complex subject, and it's something that we're always trying to fine-tune and update as well. Lastly, if you're not measuring your results, whatever you're doing, whatever tweaks you're running, whatever tests you're running are meaningless. They're not going to help you at all. So make sure you have some way to measure. We'll talk about some of the key metrics if you don't want to pay for measuring software or the tracking spreadsheet. There's a couple metrics you can go in and look at pretty easily and get a feel of, all right, I'm tweaking my strategies. Are they working? What's actually happening? So we'll get to those as well. But if you can't measure it, you're not going to be able to manage it, and you can tweak your prices all you want. And if you don't have a good system to see if they're being effective, you're probably wasting your time. So let's jump into the principles. I'll give you some examples, and then we'll answer your questions, and we'll try and be out of here in about an hour. So principle number one is it's not all about price. We're going to talk about pricing. There's a lot of other things that play a role. You can see there's a example of some books here. One, someone's written a really long description. Of course, it's kind of generic. This one here is actually probably specific to this individual book. You can see some other things that factor in. So the condition note, what you write in there. Again, a lot of people like to just have generic condition notes that says may or may not contain markings, highlightings, water damage, dog urine, whatever. They're just going to have generic descriptions. That can work. We're not going to talk about whether that's a good strategy or not, but that's one way you can do to stand out. Price is probably the most important feature, and that's what we're going to get into. The condition of your book certainly matters, perhaps not as much as you'd think. We'll have some interesting conversations on this one as we get to Phoenix at the Turn the Page Mastermind event. We've got a guy that I met who actually used to do the drop shipping deal where he lists books at a higher price than the lowest market price and was selling stuff, and he thinks it was based on condition. He would list items in very good, and people would pay a lot more for those items. So I would say condition doesn't matter that much. However, like all of these rules here, there's definitely going to be counterexamples. Your feedback score as a seller certainly does play a role if someone's going to buy your copy. The size of the seller, so someone here, Clean Earth Books, at the time of this photo, had almost 150,000 ratings, which means they probably sold somewhere between 100 and 200 times that number of books. And then Springwater Books is a newer seller. They're reputable. They got 450 reviews, but not nearly as high or the size of that. And then you can take photos, and actually those will show up on your listing. It's certainly a great way to stand out. I would argue it's probably not worth the time to do that compared to the time spent that you could actually go find and list more books. So if you guys went to Greg's event last year, or actually the Turn the Page this year, Greg spoke at it. And I think a couple of us made t-shirts afterwards that just said, buy more books. That's what Greg said. We could argue the merits of all of this. Should you make custom condition notes? Should you price things in very good or try and condition them to like new? Obviously, feedback and the size of the seller will come over time. Should you take photos? We could argue the merits back and forth, but at the end of the day, your business is probably best going to be suited if you simply go and buy more books. So we're going to talk about price. It's not all about price. There's other things that you can do to help the listing stand out, but it pretty much is about price, and we'll kind of dive into that. Secondly, think like a buyer. Anytime Amazon makes something that you can filter on, so the condition of the book, the shipping, whether it's Prime or whether it's free shipping, if you're merchant fulfilled and offer that, the buyers are going to be looking at that. Some people love free shipping, so being a Prime seller can certainly help you stand out. Some people only want to buy new. Some people will not buy acceptable. If Amazon has a search option there, they've done the research. There's a reason it's there, and that's something that you may want to consider. Again, we like to think, let's just find more books, let's get them listed. It does help to put yourself in the buyer's shoes as we get into it. One thing I'll say is you can't compete with the big dogs. Yes, that's a giant dog. You can comment below if you know the breed of that on the right. Almost as big as a horse. There are people out there that have very customized repricers. It's not off the shelf. They're not using repricers like you and I can have access to. They've designed their own. They can reprice nearly in live time. You're not going to be able to compete with them. A lot of the repricers out there can only reprice every 15 minutes. If you're using Reprice It, you can set up a couple times a day as well. So those are some things, like we'll show you how to look for repricers, but if you see some big dogs on the listing, you may want to stay away and just realize that you're not, like it's like carrying a knife to a gunfight. You may not be able to compete. We can argue this one back and forth. How many of you comment below if you price your inventory up front, or if you list everything, let's say at $200 and then let a repricer kick in? Which model do you use? There's merits either way. However, in our business, we've looked at this both ways, we've tried it both ways, and we keep coming back to it's really important for us to get eyeballs on it and price the book up front. And the reason we do that, and there's a number of repricers there that you can see, the reason we do that is 65% of books, as of last week, on Amazon with a rank under 1 million. So most of the books that most of you are selling, 65% of them had 0 Prime offers in the lowest 15 offers. So 0 Prime offers available in the API. What that means is if you say, hey, I think condition matters and I want to reprice my very good book against very good books or better, if you're doing that, that's great. But 65% of the time, 2/3, the only price you have to compare against is the used buy box. That's it. So we're not seeing condition. We can't see 2 or 3 offers and skip the cheapest one. So if you're relying on repricers, they're pretty much blind if you're selling FBA. Now, if you're selling merchant fulfilled, you get all 15 offers. You can see the condition. You can see the size of the seller. You can see their feedback score. And certainly, if you want to ignore acceptable offers and reprice against good or better, depending on the condition of your book, that's a great strategy. That works very well with merchant fulfilled. When it comes to FBA, we're mostly flying blind. And so I think it's really important to get prices up front. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear the merits of either way. It's faster to list if you don't have to price it, for sure. And so you can list more books in less amount of time. However, I think you're going to be leaving money on the table when it comes to pricing. Now, one more principle as we get into it is the buy box is a big deal. This is brought to you by Anchorman. If you guys are familiar with that quote, it's a great movie. Go watch it if you have nothing else to do today. I've heard some people say the buy box doesn't really matter when it comes to books. I think that's completely wrong, and I've got some data to back it up. It's not just my gut telling me this. So the used buy box, again, I don't sell new books, so I'm not competing for the new buy box in books, although you can get that. The used buy box pretty much goes to the lowest Prime offer from a reputable seller. So just launched sellers, some people claim they can get it. I've seen some people get it, but usually you don't. It helps to have a little bit of feedback. You have to have good seller metrics as well. And if you qualify, Amazon will kind of rotate you through, and usually the lowest Prime price, even in acceptable condition, will win the buy box. Why is that important? I won't share who, but someone who's a multiple $1 million seller lost the buy box. There was a debacle about a year ago where a bunch of sellers just lost it randomly. And Amazon turned it back on for most people fairly quickly, within a week or two. It was sort of a weird glitch. If you had kept it during that time, your sales went through the roof. This seller, for whatever reason, even though they're a big seller, even though they were able to talk to Amazon or tried to quite a bit, they didn't get the buy box turned back on, and their sales were in the pits. They were terrible. And they finally, they were literally going to fly out to Amazon and just knock on doors and try and get the buy box back. And eventually they got it. And I asked them to look at their sales from the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks before they got the buy box, so when they didn't have it, to the 2 to 3 weeks after they got it back. And their sales were, they had dropped off 50%, 48% in the 3 weeks that they didn't have the buy box. So the buy box is really important. Again, it's hard to see other prices in the API when it comes to selling FBA. And so if you could target the buy box and win it, that's a big deal. People buy it. One more just anecdotal story. We were doing a little bit of a test just to kind of test how Amazon returns data. And we listed a handful of books merchant fulfilled at $2,000. We picked a bunch of listings where the regular price was $10 to $50. These aren't $2,000 books. It's not the margin of safety. And we actually sold a book at $2,000. And the reason was I went back and looked, and the used buy box, we had happened to have won it at that time. The reason I know this is because the next lowest prime seller, I think, was Better World Books. They were on it now for $3,000, and they won the buy box. So someone went to that Amazon page, and rather than looking at all the used offers, they just clicked add to cart. They bought our book for $2,000. Now, I didn't own the book. I was just doing some tests. So I actually reached out to the seller because I could buy it brand new from a third-party seller for $50. And I said, hey, did you mean to buy our book? I'm happy to ship it to you. However, you can get it cheaper elsewhere. And he was very grateful that we told him that. But people just go in. They're kind of like monkeys. They'll just go in and click buy, add to cart. They assume it's a good price, or they assume it's from Amazon. The buy box matters. Okay, we got a couple ISBNs coming through. Again, we'll get to those in a little bit. So here's the principles of pricing. Again, it's not all about price. There's other things you can do to stand out. I would argue that price is one of the bigger things, especially as an FBA seller. Number 2, think like a buyer. If you can filter on something, they probably will. 3, you're not going to be able to compete with the big dogs. Doesn't mean you can't try, but you may need to play a different game when it comes to repricing. Don't play their game because they're going to beat you at it. I would argue that pricing up front matters. And there's a couple ways. Again, if you want to list everything at $200, you can. Once you ship it and it takes a couple days to get checked into a warehouse, you can go back in. I just did a YouTube video. I'll push it live probably today or tomorrow on the Book Flipper channel. And it shows how I use a couple Chrome extensions to reprice very quickly. It lets you see the prime prices easily, kind of lets you get 2 screens going at one time. If you don't have 2 screens, kind of splits your window and helps you reprice very quickly. So you can price once it hits inventory as well. But I think getting your own eyeballs or paying a virtual assistant to look at the price from the very beginning does help. And lastly, the buy box does matter. It could be your best friend. Okay, so those are the principles. Let's talk about the practices. Now, what the following is, these are the 5 steps I use, kind of an ordered sequence. This is something I've tweaked over the last couple of years. I do this for every single book, and I train our book listers to do this as well. So every book that comes in the door, we actually list through Exceller list. They've got the Keep a Chart embedded right in there, so it's easy to see. And we use these exact rules to price. And of course, like the English language, again, there are exceptions. One of those is textbooks. We price textbooks very differently. We're not necessarily trying to sell those in the off season. Some we certainly will, but in cases where the prices do spike quite a bit, we're going to come back in and reprice those later. We're going to try and price those up high as well. All right, I'm just talking to myself. Matthew, are there people on? Are there at least 5, 10 people here? I can't see it. I don't have it up. Hopefully there's some people here. And Matthew, let me know if people are watching. That'd be great. All right, so again, these 5 rules are what I use to price my inventory. It's what I teach our people, our book listers, to price as well. So step 1 is we're going to look and try and find our floor and ceiling price. So what we're doing is we're looking at the lowest used price. It's usually merchant fulfilled. We add shipping to it. We make sure it's the true landed price. Then I'm looking at Amazon's price, and sometimes that window is really big or very large. Sometimes it's very small, and I'm trying to figure out what's my range that we're talking. So we're setting our range first of all. If the merchant fulfilled price starts at $6 and Amazon's on it for 10, that's a very narrow window. I'm probably going to price as close to Amazon as I can, assuming that the rest of it checks out. So first off is just getting a feel. Are we talking about an $8 merchant fulfilled book, or are we talking about an $80 book? Because the strategies vary a little bit. Number two, we're going to look at the sales history. You can do that with eScore. You can do that with a Keep a chart installed right on your page, or you can click through to Camel. Again, if you use AccelerList, they've got a Keep a chart embedded right when you list with private or live mode. It's pretty nice. You can see that easily. We're not going to get into Keepa if you're not familiar with it. I've got other training videos on YouTube. You can watch those for free and learn how to interpret the Keepa charts. There's also some paid trainings that other people have as well that are pretty good. All we're trying to do is look at that and say, all right, what's the velocity? Are we looking at low sales velocity? Is it selling a little bit, like a low e-score, 2 or 3 or 4? In this case, the green lines are what we're looking at. Every time this squiggles like a heart rate monitor, that's a sale. So this would be something that's a very low velocity. Is it somewhere in the middle? Again, like the heart rate monitor, this is okay. It's selling a couple times a month. It's nothing crazy. It's probably somewhere in the middle. So this is a medium velocity. Or is it high? So again, we start with what's our price range? What's the lowest price? What's Amazon's price? Next, how often is this book selling? A little bit, medium amount, or a high amount. And then third, from there, before we look at any prime prices, all we've done, and even though they're on the screen with AccelerList, I try and avoid them. I'm just looking at the lowest used price, Amazon's price, and I'm looking for that green line. Is it low, medium, or high? From there, this is probably the most important chart, and don't worry, I'll fill it in. You're going to pick a target price. Before you look at prime prices, before you look at anything else, we're going to pick a target price. And the way we do this is this is very general. I didn't try and give exact prices because this is not as much of a science as it is an art for this particular part. So what we've done is we've got sales rank on the bottom. Sales rank of 1, that's the best sales rank you can have, and then up to 5, 6, 10, 20 million, whatever on the right. This blue or black line here on the bottom is the merchant fulfilled price, and I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's $10 or $100, the same principles apply. The better the rank, so the closer we get to 1, the higher my target price is going to be for FBA. So if we've got a $10 merchant fulfilled price, before I even look at where other FBA sellers are, if Amazon's not on the listing, let's say, I'm gonna price this in my head at $50, $60, $70. I'm gonna ask for a big premium. As rank gets worse, so as we get into $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million, I'm not gonna ask for as much of a prime bump between merchant fulfilled and prime. My target's gonna be a little bit lower. And then as we get, for me, it's about $2 million to $2.5 million. I'm not really asking for a premium at all. I'm pretty much just matching the lowest merchant fulfilled price, maybe add a couple pennies so I don't incite the race to the bottom. So this chart, lock it into your mind. Again, there's no specific numbers on it. That's not the point. What we're trying to do is say, hey, is it selling a ton? And maybe a better way to view it is the next slide. So green is selling a lot. Yellow is selling a medium amount. Red is kind of a low velocity. It's not selling often. It's got an e-score of 1 or 2. If it's selling a lot, we're going to ask for a large premium. That's our target. If it's selling in the middle, we're going to ask for a little bit of a premium. And if the velocity is not very high at all, we're not going to ask for much of a premium. In fact, we'll probably match that lowest price plus a couple of pennies, again, just so that their repricer doesn't keep undercutting us. So this is very important. Looks like, I don't know, the French flag or the German flag. I don't know whose flag is red, yellow, and green. Looks like a little stoplight turned sideways. Again, this is not an exact science. You can take screenshots, that's fine. This is not an exact science. But for example, if I have a $5 merchant fulfilled book, which is basically those penny books plus some shipping, if we have that, if it's not selling a lot, I'm probably asking $9.95, $8.95. I'm not asking for much of a premium, but I'm going to ask for a little bit of a premium as my target. Again, this is before we look at prime prices. If it's selling in the middle, if it's selling a decent amount, if it's an e-score of 20 or 30 or 40, I'm going to ask for a decent premium on that, so probably $19 to $25. And if it's selling a ton, if it's got an e-score of 150 or 100 or higher, I'm going to ask for a very high premium. And again, you can see how this strategy changes. For cheap books, I'm not asking for much of a premium. For a $50 book, again, I'm not going to sell it for $50 and 1 cent as a prime seller. I'm going to ask for a little bit of a premium, but I am trying to be that next sale because it's not selling often. I want to be the next sale when it eventually comes. If it's selling a medium amount, e-score of 20 to 50, I'm probably going to ask for a decent premium of 80 to $100. And again, if it's selling a lot, I can ask almost anything within reason. You can't ask $2,000. That does happen occasionally, but that's not something to build a business around. So this is just some rough principles of if the lowest used price is in this range, Here's what I'm doing for high and medium and low sales velocities. All right, so we've got our floor and our ceiling price. We looked at it. We've then looked at our sales velocity, low, medium, or high. Then before we even look at prime prices, we pick a target price. Lastly, or second to last, one more thing. Don't be like Icarus. Don't fly too close to the sun. So we haven't really talked about what to do if Amazon's on the listing. But again, we want to stay under Amazon. And so if our target price would have been $100, but Amazon's on it for 80, I'm usually going to stay about 10% under Amazon. And that number does fluctuate. If Amazon's on it for 80 and the book is selling a ton, then I'll probably price at 77, 78. I'll get really close to them, but I'm not going to price a penny lower, especially as a used seller. You will hear examples where people say, hey, Amazon was on it for 20 and I sold it, used prime for 25 because someone didn't look. Sure, that happens, but again, I wouldn't build a business around it. So don't fly too close. I like to stay about 10% away from Amazon. Once I've got a target price, let's say it's $40, at that point, I look at the FBA offers and try and make a decision. So you can filter it. You can use some Chrome extensions to only show you prime if that's what you want. And from here, let's say my target price was $40. I look at the offers and go, hey, there's a ton of sellers on it in that $30 to $32 range. Now you have to make a decision. Do I want to wait and price at my $39, $40 price point and wait for the sale to come to me? Or do I want to try and undercut what's here or just kind of match the second lowest price and try and move it a little bit quicker? And again, that depends. You're the boss. You get to set it up how you want. If you bought this at a thrift store and paid 50 cents or $1 and you're happy flipping it for 30, then by all means, match the lowest price, undercut them, go above them by a penny. You can certainly slide it in anywhere. Me personally, I like to price in the lowest 5 offers. So I'm looking for gaps. Here it goes from 30.01 to 30.02 to 30.04. So I have to wait for 3 sellers to sell out in front of me if I want to match this next guy. And at that point, there's not much extra profit. So why wait? Go ahead and match the lowest price. Now, if I'm willing to wait, let's say it's a textbook and I know that the volume is going to go up or the demand is going to be there come September, August, or January, then I may well price this up higher and be okay not selling it in the near future. But for me, I like to price in the lowest 5. Once you look at the offers, then you can make a decision about, all right, where do I want to price it? So bear with me. I got a little bit of a story problem, some math showing up on the screen here. If I picked a target price, let's go back to that last example of $40. If my target price is higher than where most of the FBA offers are, I'm going to ignore my target. I'm going to price where the market dictates that it should be. So I'm going to price competitively. I'm probably going to match the lowest price, maybe match the second lowest price, and move on. If my target price, let's say it's 40, is lower than the FBA prices. So on this last example, if all the FBA prices were in the $60 range and my target, my gut, my experience told me to price at 40, I'm probably going to ignore the FBA prices and I'm going to match my target price, stick to my guns. That may incite someone to undercut me, so be it. I'm going to price it where I think I can get that premium. Again, on a $10 merchant fulfilled book, you can certainly get 40 FBA, but it depends on which buyer is willing to pay that. Not every buyer is willing to pay it. So if the velocity is high, then certainly I'll ask for a high target price. If it's only selling once or twice in 6 months, I might get lucky and get a buyer that doesn't care about price and only wants prime and they'll buy me, but I'm usually going to shrink that gap and price closer to the merchant fulfilled prices. And lastly, if the target price you had in mind was 40 and all the FBA offers are right at 40, it's beer o'clock, you're done with your day, leave it at that price and go home or just go ahead and list more books. So those are the rules I use. Again, these do not apply to textbooks. And again, there are exceptions. We'll look at some examples. So rule number 1 is eyeball the floor and ceiling, kind of figure out what your range is. Is it a big range? Is it a small range? Is Amazon on the listing? Answer those questions. Number 2, look at it, keep a chart briefly. Don't count it. You can use eScore if you want. That's great. All we're trying to do is this selling a little bit, a medium amount, or a lot? From there, we're going to pick a target price. Again, the more it's selling, the higher from the merchant fulfilled price we're going to go. Once you have a target price established, look at the prime offers on the listing and then set your actual price accordingly. So if you have questions on that, you can put those below. We're going to now jump into some examples and then we'll get to your examples as well. So I've just got some screenshots. This is, if you click through to Amazon, here's what you would see before you click through to the offers. And what we're trying to do, again, we're looking at merchant fulfilled is $12 because that's going to be the lowest used price. It could be prime. I frankly don't care. This is the market price right now. It's a $12 book. Paperback new, usually you see that listed here. It doesn't say Amazon here, but it is them. that's going to be 16. So my range is going to be $12, probably plus shipping, to 16. So it's a very narrow window. So if I'm pricing this book, I'm gonna probably price within that range, which doesn't leave me a lot of room to price intelligently and make a lot more money. Here's the Keepa chart. Again, we're looking at the green. This is a year. This is in the medium to medium high. It's selling a good amount. And you can see, again, the black line here is the lowest used price at the time when you took the snapshot. So in this case, this is at $12. Amazon's on it for 16 and change. So we're going to price somewhere in here as a prime seller. Again, these rules are applying to prime sellers. We're going to price between 12 and 16. Because it's selling a fair amount, I'm willing to price a little bit closer to Amazon. Again, I like to stay 10% away. So if they were on it for 16, 14, I'm probably going to go a little more than $1 lower. I'll probably come in at $14.95 as my target. Once I have my target, let's go look. So $14.95 is the target. Let's look at prime offers. Here we got one at 16, and then it goes up to Amazon again. Is on it for 16, 14. So in this case, I could adjust my target just a little bit and come in at $15.95, $15.99, undercut this person. Or I could stick to my guns and come in at $14.95 and try and stay a little bit more away from Amazon. Someone asked a question. We'll kind of pick some of these off. If you do have those, feel free to comment below. Someone says, I also price about 10% below Amazon if they're on the listing. How does condition affect that? If Amazon's selling new at $50 and your book's condition is good, would you still price at 10% below? Yeah, when it comes to acceptable, I may stay farther away. And again, it's all kind of subjective. So the more often the book is selling, if the sales velocity is high, the closer I'm going to get to Amazon's price. So if they're on it for 50 and it's selling several copies a day, if the rank's well under 100,000, then I'm willing to go probably up to $48, $49. I'm going to stay really close to them. If it's selling 2 or 3 copies a month, it's somewhere in the middle. I'm probably not going to get as close. I'll probably come in at that 10% deduction, so maybe $45. And if it's not selling very often at all, I'm not really going to get that close to Amazon, because if a seller comes in and says, hey, I can buy it used for 45 or new from Amazon for 50, they're probably going to go a little bit lower. I'd rather get that sale, so I might come in at $39.95 and give them an incentive for the few buyers that are coming to grab my offer. As far as condition plays, to your question, again, if I'm acceptable, I'm probably not getting as close to Amazon. So if I wanted to stay 10% away because it's a medium selling copy and I wanted to price at 45, if I have an acceptable copy, again, I'll look at what the market is saying. If there's nobody else on it, prime, then I might come in at 40 to 42, somewhere in there, maybe again $39.95. It depends on, do you have to get a certain price for it? Do you have $20 invested in it? Or do you have $2 invested and you're happy just to move it? I'd probably list it for $39 if it was acceptable. So good question. All those things do play a role. And again, if you have questions, feel free to comment those below. Some other examples. Again, here we go. We got hardcover starting at $12. Again, what you want to be careful of is the penny books. And there are no penny books anymore because the fees have changed. The $5 to $6 books are the new penny books. But sometimes you'll see a book listed for $1, and then once you click through, it's got $4 or $5 of shipping. If we're not at a penny book, I get a little more excited because I know I can price it a little bit higher. If it's a penny book for $5, yeah, a few people will pay $20 to $30, but that's not as common as a $12 book that someone will pay $30 or $40 or $20 or $30 prime. So in this case, I don't see Amazon on the listing. We can click through and confirm that, but my floor price is $12. And then we're going to price somewhere above that based on the velocity. So I've looked at my floor and ceiling. Now we look at the sales velocity. Again, this is a year, and this book is regularly between 100 and 4 to 500,000. This one's selling a fair amount. Again, it's not selling every day. It's not under 100,000, but it is consistently selling every 3 to 4 to 5 days, a couple times a week probably. So in this case, it's a high sales velocity or a medium high, if you want to call it that. Here we click through, we're filtering only on Prime. There's nobody else on the listing. I love these books. I get to set the price. Merchant Fulfilled is $12, probably plus shipping. And again, we can see that here and the black line here. I also like looking to the left. So look over the last year. Where has this book been? This book's consistently been for sale used between 10 and 15, which with occasional spikes up to 15 or 20 or 25. But this book is consistently a $10 to $15 book. What that tells me is there's consistent demand for it. So when I get to set the market price, there's no other prime sellers on the listing. Again, if it's acceptable, I might not ask for as big of a premium. I may only go up to 20 or 25. I love the $25 price point because non-prime buyers can still get free shipping at $25. So 25, if in doubt, 25 is always a great figure. Because this is selling quite a bit, I'm probably going to ask for more of a premium. I'm the only prime seller. If someone wants it quickly, they have to buy from me, and I'm going to take advantage. So I'm probably going to price this in the $30 to $40 range. If I got greedy, maybe $49. Could you go up to $99? Maybe 1 out of 50 sellers would pay that. However, I'm trying to sell this usually a little faster than that, and I'm probably going to come in at the $30 to $40 to $50 range. Another book, this is an expensive one. The cheapest used prices start at $60. Amazon's on it, as we can see, the Prime logo here for $94. So that's my range. I'm coming in between $60 and $94, and I'm not going to get super close to Amazon, although we'll see what the sales volume is. So we look at the sales velocity again over the last year. I'm looking at the green line as a heart rate monitor. This is medium. It's not selling every day. It's not even selling every week. Sometimes it goes a couple weeks without selling, but it's selling a couple times a month. It's in the middle. Again, I like to look at this black line. Right now it's at 60. A couple months ago it was at 70. Before that it was at 75. So this book is regularly in the $60 to $70 to $80 range used. So before I look at prime prices, Amazon used to be on it for $125. They've dropped. They're in that $95 range now. It looks like they even dropped briefly as well. So Amazon is making moves, which is not as common, but when you see that, it lets us know they're trying to blow it out, or they're matching prime sellers as well. So $60 is the floor. It's selling in the middle. I'm probably going to price this at around $80 to $85. I'm not going to get too close to Amazon. And again, once we have our target price, we're going to go in and look. Again, I wanted to be in the $80 to $85 range. Amazon Warehouse Deals is on it for $81.51. And of course, they're going to charge tax as well. So I'm probably going to either match them, even though they're like new. I might undercut them by a little. But again, this is one of those big sellers that if you undercut them, they're probably going to catch up within a couple minutes and beat you on the listing, and that might be wasting your time. We'll show you how to look for that in a minute. For those of you who have competed with Amazon Warehouse Deals, you know what I'm talking about. Also, this is an older one because Amazon Warehouse Deals removed their feedback score, I believe. So they don't even let you see how bad they are. They just have their logo. So a little bit shady on their part. Their feedback, I think, was in the upper 70s as of a couple months ago before they removed it. So again, we've got our target price of about 80 to 85. We look at market prices, and again, Amazon Warehouse Deals may have 30 or 40 of these. You can click through. You can actually add it to your cart, change the quantity to $9.99, and see there are some Chrome extensions. Keepa's got one that'll actually show you the quantity for some sellers. If they have one copy, I might let them sell out, and I'll come in at 84 or 85. If they have multiple, I may just match them or beat them by a penny and see what happens. A few more examples, then we'll look at some of yours. Here's a book for the lowest price is $14.66 plus shipping. There's rentals on it. I don't let that bother me too much. Some students may prefer the rental, but I don't usually look at that. What I'm looking at is Amazon's on this listing. So here we've got a big range. Let me grab a drink. Here we've got a big range. Lowest used is at 15. Amazon's on it for 76. So I'm going to price somewhere in between. The question is where, and again, we're going to look at velocity to help us determine this. So right away, you see a smile pattern. This is a textbook. So all the rules that we just talked about, assuming that you want to wait for textbook season, probably go out the window. So when the green line makes a smiley face with Keepa, you see that in August and September. That's a lot of sales. It was well under 100,000. We see that same pattern again in January. The other nice thing I like about this is the black line, the used price spike. So it was around 15 to 20. During textbook season, it spiked up to 40. Prime was probably much higher than that. This blue line is new. Keepa does not see Prime prices, unfortunately. They use an older version of Amazon's API. So Prime is probably somewhere in between. It's certainly going to be higher than merchant fulfilled. The question is how much higher. And then again, in January, we see that spike a bit, and then it actually tails off pretty quickly. We get a little spike in end of February. But I look at this chart right now. We know that the price is at 14 to 15 bucks. Used, Amazon's on it for 76, if memory serves me correctly. So we're going to price somewhere in between. Now, if this were me, and right now we just missed September, so this is an older chart from June right now. So if this were me, I'm probably going to actually price this in the $50 to $60 to $70 range and wait it out and let the next textbook season hit. Even if it's January and only goes to 20, Prime could be higher. If I was going to price it to sell within the next couple months and ignore textbook season, then I want to be in the lowest 5 Prime prices now. And because it's selling a fair amount, it's not as high in the off season. It's going to be in that medium range. I'm probably going to come in at the $25 to $35 price point. Let's look at where the other prices are. This was actually our example from earlier. Prime prices are right now at 30. You could buy it for 14. You can sell it for 30 today, theoretically. And in this case, I'm probably going to wait. I'm going to let all these lowball people duke it out and fight for it. And I'm probably going to price at 39.08 and beat Booksters books. Or I may go a little bit higher. If there's a gap after this, I may go up to 49 as well and just wait and let it sell. If I wanted to sell it quickly, let's say I picked it up for $1 and I'd rather have $20 after fees back, relatively soon, I would probably match the lowest prime price or the second lowest. One more example, I think, and then we'll show some other outliers. So this one, we've got a narrow window. Instead of 14 to 75, we're looking at a $60 floor price up to 73. So wherever we price it, we're not going to get that much of a differential. Sales velocity is very low. It's only selling a couple times in the last 6 months. So the E-score is probably going to be 5 or 6, maybe once a month the last 6 months. In this case, there's no other prime sellers. Wait, before we get there, it's at $60. It's not selling very often. My target price is probably going to be in the 62 to 63. I'm going to only ask for a couple dollars premium above the merchant fulfilled. There's nobody else prime, so I don't have to worry about market pricing. I'm probably going to price this in the 62, 63, maybe 65, and try and be the next prime sale. Again, I'm also trying to stay a little bit away from Amazon so that someone would buy my copy and save a few bucks. All right, what about some outliers? What about some weird examples? Here's a book. Right now it just says currently unavailable. That means nobody's on the listing. When you see that, the rank's going to be weird because no one's bought it in the last who knows how long, so we want to be careful. So we get to essentially pick the price. Nobody's on it. Well, what do? Well, again, keep as your friends here. Pull up the chart. Let's see where it was selling in the past. So this book was selling a fair amount. The rank was between 200,000 and $1 million for the last year. However, we see that Amazon, the orange line here, is actually on the listing for probably $12 to $15. You could hover on this on the Keep It chart and actually see the numbers. The used prices were pretty close to it. It did tail off and become a penny book briefly. Notice this was actually when the fees went up. This would have been in I think I did this in 2017. So the fees originally went up in 2017, so people were probably trying to dump inventory. A great time to buy if you were fortunate enough to be there. Someone bought those cheap offers. The used price went back right under Amazon. So this book is normally a $15 to $20 book. You can match what it should have been. Again, the rank's going to keep going up until someone buys it again. So this book might get up to 2, 3, 4 million. Rank does have a memory, so the fact that it sold a bunch in the past, a normal book that hasn't sold in a month may get up as high as $1.5 million, $2 million. A book that has sold a lot in the past won't go up as fast. So again, you get to set your price. You don't want to be too greedy and ask for $1,000 because probably someone's not going to spend it. However, I wouldn't be opposed, even though the market price should have been around 20, I wouldn't be opposed to asking for 40 or 50. Sometimes a lot of people like to just throw a $99 price tag on it, see if someone buys it. Again, what's the worst that could happen? If you price it at 20 and someone buys it, you missed out on a chance to make more money, but you sold it. If you price it at $100, hoping that someone really wants that book and is willing to pay anything, good for you. You might not sell it right away. You might not sell it at all. But worst case, you just don't sell it. You can lower that price later, and maybe someone else joins you on the listing. But for this one, if it were me, I'd probably come in at 39 or 49 and try and chase the next sale. I got another question that came in. What do you do with books that have 50 or so many sellers that Amazon won't even show you the list of offers, i.e. top 10,000 ranked book with 1,500 offers or so? Just go on 10% under Amazon and hope. So you're always going to be able to see the list of offers once you click through. Again, you might not see prime offers in a scouting app or Exceller list or Scout IQ, but if there's a ton of sellers, you got to try and be one of the next sales, essentially. Again, I like to price in the lowest 5 offers. So let's just make some numbers up. Let's say it's an $8 merchant fulfilled book, including shipping. Amazon's on it for 15. So the question is, where do you price? We know it's selling all the time because the rank's under 10,000. So I guess you're asking, do we just price it at $13.50 or $14 and just wait? Maybe. But again, I'm going to look at the prime offers. I would like to price it there. That's my target. But then I'm going to go look. If there's a ton of sellers on it for $9.95, I'm going to match that price, undercut them by a penny, and try and just blow it out the door right away. If there's nobody else prime because everybody's bought them, then I'm certainly going to snuggle up and get close to Amazon on that particular book. Good question. If you have other questions, ask those before. So that's what to do with no offers. Again, Keepa can help you realize what a fair price is. Ask for a premium. You're the only one selling it, so don't be afraid to do that. Here's another example of a book. What about, I call them stupid high offers. Here's a book for $800. The Real Life of a Pediatrician. It's not really a textbook. It looks like a biography or someone's story. It's probably not worth $800. I don't really care about the reviews. Someone's willing to pay $2 because maybe there's some value we don't know. So again, keep as your friends. So maybe it's an $800 book. Maybe you can be done working for the week and go on a little vacation. That's cool. Buy a bunch of beers, whatever you do with $800. Come to Denver and treat me to a round of golf. That'd be fun. But let's go look and see what this book actually sells for in the past. So this particular book, you can see the Keepa chart doesn't actually match the data that's here. So the lowest price right now is $800. Keepa is showing that someone's on the listing for $49. Now that could be a collectible, and that usually doesn't show up on the side here. It could just be a glitch in the API, which happens a lot more than we'd care to admit. Amazon, fix your API. But we see that this book normally was selling in the $25 range, this black line. Again, Prime might be a little higher, but certainly not $800 higher. We can see the sales. So the green line, when it drops, this is a sale. So this book sold at least the $20 range. Maybe someone bought a new copy for $100. It sold again here. And so it sold in the $20 range again. It sold in the $20 range. So the market value for this book is somewhere in the $20 to $30 range. It's kind of silly to ask for $800. So what you could do here is undercut the $800 offer, come in at $799, and maybe you'll get lucky and get the sale. Realistically, you want to price where the market price was, where it was actually selling. And again, just if the black line was way up here at $300 or $400, that doesn't mean it sold there. You need to look for that correlating drop in green. So when it dropped here, the lowest price was 20-ish. So we're going to price this where the market should be. We're going to ignore these highball offers. And again, I'm probably going to price this in the $30 to $40 range. I'll ask for a premium compared to the merchant fulfilled price is what this black line was, but I'm not going to ask for $800. Now, you could ask for $800 and cross your fingers and hope Amazon loses your book. And when they go to give you an inventory reimbursement, they'll say, hey, it's an $800 book. Here's $600, $800 minus fees. That's happened to me before. Again, I wouldn't bank on it. I would price this at a more realistic price. Another strategy to look at, let me grab a drink, is look for repricers. So one, you want to look for big sellers. So Apex Media, they're usually going to have a lot of books. If you undercut them, they're gonna drop it pretty quickly. Might be hard to see on the screen. This one's for $19.97. The next price is $23.64, then $26, then $36, then $44. So there's a big gap between all these prices. What we're trying to do is look for clustered prices. If we see 2 or 3 prices that are all matched or within a penny, that's a good indication that there's a repricer going on. When you see that, again, a lot of these bigger sellers have bigger guns than all of us combined have. And so if you're going to undercut them, just be prepared that they're going to undercut you right back. Now, I'm not going to say let's collude and come up with a strategy to beat them. It's not about that. It's just understand that if you, let's say there was 5 sellers for $19.97 and you undercut them by a penny, log back in 15 minutes later, they're probably all going to undercut you by a penny. And now, instead of being first in line, you're still 6th in line. You got to wait for all of them to sell, or you got to keep repricing to try and stay relevant, or you could ignore the repricers and price a little bit higher. So in this particular book, I don't see evidence of repricer. Some of these are bigger sellers and they certainly may undercut you, but I'm not as worried. So maybe I would price and beat the second seller by a penny, coming at $23.63. Wait for the first guy to sell out. This isn't selling a ton, and try and be second in line. That's a good strategy. Here's an example where there is a repricer. Let me try and make this a little bigger. Okay, so here's a book. We see $24.20, $24.20, and then it jumps to $26, $29, $35. Volume-wise, it's medium to low. It's not selling a whole bunch in the last, I lied, this is actually a 3-month chart, so it's actually selling a fair amount. This is medium to medium high. Again, I like to be in the lowest 5 prime prices. Let's say I want it to be number 2 at any rate. I'm going to ignore these 2, because if I come in at $24.19, the fact that they're matched up on price probably indicates that they're repricing and trying to match each other. So if I undercut them, all I'm going to do is lower everybody's prices, and I'm still going to be third in line at the end of the day. So don't be afraid to price here at $26.57, or even go a little bit higher up to $30 and go there as well. Someone asked, how does your strategy change with multiple copies? Depends. Do I have multiple copies, or do the rest of the people have multiple? So again, I like to be in the lowest 5, especially here. This is selling a fair amount. I'm fine waiting and being maybe in the $29.98 range or $35. I'd rather tuck and wait for these guys to sell out, and I can get an extra $10, $5 or $10 compared to trying to blow it out quickly. those add up over time. If I can be a little smarter, price a little higher, and wait for the sale to come to me. Again, worst case, more sellers jump on the listing, the price drops, I can come back later and either turn on a repricer and just blow it out at that point, or kind of figure it out. Again, I like to price up front. Personally, my sales volume drops off, my sell-through rate on any new batch of books at about 5 or 6 weeks. At that point, I reprice it, usually with, I've got kind of a bulk tool that I use, but it's very similar to reprice it. And I try and reprice at about 6 to 8 weeks, and then I try and reprice about once a week after that, just to try and move inventory. So I'm going to try and set this. Again, if you had a repricer do this, and all it saw was the used buy box at $24.20, that's all you have to go on. I'd rather look at this and say, hey, this is selling a fair amount in the last 3 months. I'm actually fine pricing at $29.98, getting an extra $5 and waiting, or maybe at $35 and waiting a little longer and getting that as well. So if I have multiple copies, I'm not going to price as high, perhaps, because, I want to try and blow some of those out, try and sell them. If these guys have, look at the sellers, San Diego Book Exchange may have a couple. Apex Media almost certainly has a bunch. These are all smaller sellers to some extent, so they probably don't have multiples. Again, you can turn on in Keepa. They've got an option to show the quantity. It doesn't work all the time and not with every seller, but that's a way to see it. If, let's say, Apex had 30 copies, then what I just told you kind of goes out the window. You don't want to price much higher than them unless they're acceptable and you're very good. You don't want to price too much higher than them because you're going to have to wait until they sell. So I may try and match their price or come in at a penny higher, and hopefully someone will buy my book instead. Okay, let's look at a couple other examples. Again, look for gaps. I like to be in the lowest 5. Here's 2 sellers on this book, actually 3 for 18, and then the price jumps up to 50. So this book used is about $10. So $18 is not much of a premium, and this book is selling a medium amount. This is a year chart. It's got a fair amount of squiggles on the green line. So my target price is probably going to be $25 to $29. Again, because these are probably repricers going after each other. Actually, Dream Books is on this twice. Because these are probably repricers going after each other, then I am probably going to not undercut them. I'm going to price higher, price somewhere in this gap. I probably wouldn't go to 50, but I might go at 29 to 35, somewhere in there. Wait for these guys to sell out, and then I'm next in line. Again, another gap. We've got an offer at 36, 37, then it jumps to 50. This book is selling a fair amount. This is, again, probably a medium graph over the last year. So again, you can either undercut what's there, or you can price in the $49 to $54 range, be number 3 in line. And again, a repricing software probably can't see this many offers to even know that this price exists. So it's probably really smart to tuck in here, wait for these guys to sell out, and then you'll get the sale eventually. Lastly, I said it's very important to measure results. Again, shameless plug for the tracking spreadsheet. It's going to help you see what your turn rates are, look at your source metrics, see what your average selling price is, and kind of see that over time and make good decisions. If you don't want to pay for a spreadsheet, if you don't want to pay for software, that's fine. What you should be checking are 2 things. You should go back every week. I do it on Monday because that's when Amazon's charts reset. They do weeks starting on Monday going through Sunday. So I go in on Monday morning and I look at last week's data, and I'm looking at my average sell price and how many units I sold compared to how many units I have in inventory. Now, the technical turn rate calculation is looking at the average amount of inventory in stock for that week, for example. So if you listed some and sold some, you should get an average daily value. That's too much work. If you sold 100 items and you've got 900 left in stock at the end of the week, take what you have at the end of the week, add what you sold. So 900 plus 100 is 1,000. That's what you had a week ago. 100 out of 1,000 is 10%. So that's 10% in a week. That would be very good. Typical turn rates for merchant fulfilled sellers are somewhere in the 1% per day or 7 to 10% a week. For FBA, they tend to be a little bit slower. We'll get into some of these metrics at the conference again in Phoenix next month. But what you should be doing is tracking these weekly. And if your turn rate is incredibly low, 2 or 3% in a week, you might want to do something to try and get it bumped up to 4 to 5 or 6%. So if your turn rate's too low, that means one of 2 things. 1, you don't have very good inventory, your average rank is way too high, or 2, you're pricing too high and you're not getting the sales. So if your turn rate again is in the low single digits, 2 or 3% for a week, you need to relook at your pricing and try and get it up. On the other end of the equation, we could drop all of our prices and just blow out our inventory and maybe sell 20% in a week. Or if you're selling textbooks, you might have sold 20% in some of the last few weeks because it's great. It was textbook season. You want to look at your average selling price, and Amazon will actually tell you that for the last week. Go set your Amazon chart on a laptop or computer and see what your average selling price was, or if you want to do the math yourself, see what your sales were last week divided by the number of units that you sold. And again, it depends on your business model. If you're selling in bulk and buying by the truckload, your average selling price, even if it's prime, is probably going to be in the $10 to $12 to $13 range. That's okay. If you're a cherry picker like me, or you're doing a lot of online arbitrage, your average selling price should probably be approaching 20, if not 25 or 30, depending on your business model. So you want to look at your turn rate and your average selling price, and you want to kind of compare those. If your turn rate is really good, you're doing awesome, you're selling 10% of your inventory in a week, but your average selling price is really low, that probably means you left money on the table. You maybe sold too much of your inventory. If your average selling price is really high and you're going, great, I normally sell everything for $15, I hit $20 last week, but your turn rate went way down, that's probably why. So again, you're pricing too high because all you care about is this, and you didn't actually sell enough inventory to make it worth it. So these two numbers work in tandem. It's a delicate balancing act. You want to make sure that you're monitoring these, and if you have a new strategy you want to try, figure out what your benchmarks are. Do I normally sell 5% a week? Let's adjust our strategy. Did our turn rate go up to 6 or 7? Awesome, it's working. Well, what happened to our ASP? Did it drop to the point where we're not making a profit, or we're not making as good of a profit? That might be something you want to look at. So those are the bare minimum of what you should be measuring. That's the end of my slides. I'm all talked out. We were here for an hour. I will stick around, take some questions. So I know many of you put in some ISBNs you want us to take a look at, so we'll go ahead and look at those. Let me pull up something we can take a look at here. Shrink this down. All right, so actually let me grab a different browser. I want to make sure I've got Keepa installed. All right, so if you have questions, go ahead and post those below. If you have some ISBNs you want us to take a look at, you can do that as well. So let's go to Amazon. And we'll shrink this down just a sketch. Try to fit that into what you can see. Hopefully you guys can still see this. Okay, and I've got a Keepa extension installed here. So we're gonna take a look at those rules that we had, look at our floor and our ceiling price, and then kind of make our decisions from that. And let me shrink it down just a hair more. There we go. Okay, so I've got a fair amount of ISBNs here. I don't know who these came from, so we'll just keep it nice and anonymous, and we'll go from there. So here's our first one. All right, so as I'm clicking through, I'm looking. So here's a book where I'm thinking, all right, this is probably one of those stupid high prices. A photographic history, maybe someone's willing to pay it, I don't know, but $500, that gets my alarm going. That's probably a little high. Kindle, I don't really care about. There's not a ton of people selling this, so let's go look. Shrink this down just a hair more again. All right, so here my Keepa chart's gonna load. This one, let's go back to a year. Let's get rid of the other data. Let's try and keep this clean. Okay, so this one used to sell a ton. We see a lot of squiggles back close to a year ago, but the price back then, the black line you can see was $27. So this book's, there's a lot of people buying it when it's $27. It went up over the Christmas time frame, so late November, early December, so maybe it's a Q4 book. It went up quite a bit. Maybe people were buying it, and the price went up, and then as a result, we see that it stopped selling. So when the price is stupid high, someone comes in and goes, hey, for $25, sure, I'll buy it. For $155, not so much. Now, these little adjustments here in Keepa are not sales. Rank updates every hour, and again, Rank remembers, and some books get added to Amazon and removed from Amazon. So it's common to see these little surfing waves. These are not sales. These are just where Rank was recalibrated. We wouldn't count this as an e-score or a sale as well. Here it sold. We can see the price drop back down to a reasonable price of $17, $18, $18, then it went up a little bit. It looks like it did sell in the $125 range twice, and then it went out of stock. It came back in stock at $500, and again, nobody's buying it until the price dropped, this black line. It dropped down to a reasonable price of $92 to $100. Someone bought a copy, now the price went back to $500. So, if this is me, we've got, oh hey, one of the people from Booksellers FBA is in here. If we see some of these people on the listing, and again, Glass Frog, I believe is a drop shipper, don't hold me to that. Half price books. Again, these people have their repricers set up to look at it, saying, hey, it's a $500 book, let's come in higher. If this is me, Sure, you can throw a Hail Mary and see what happens and try and price in the $500 range. Maybe you'll get the sale. Realistically, from what Keep is telling me, is the highest it was selling at was in the $150 to $200 range, and it more often sells in the $17 to $20 range. So if it's me, I may throw a $99 price tag on it. Maybe someone that's doing online arbitrage would buy this, hoping to buy the market from 100, move it to 500, and get that sale price. But the Keep a chart to me does not demonstrate that it sells at 500. So I'm probably going to price it at 99 and try and get someone to buy that. That was a good book. Let's see if we got what other books do we have. Here's the second book to look at. Here we've got a $100 book, Mid-Ocean. It's a novel, so a fiction book going for that. It's a 2 million rank. And again, I've got some Chrome extensions that kind of overlay some of this data. There's not a lot of used offers, so this may not be realistic. Let's go look. Keepa is your friend. You want to get used to reading that. Okay, so this is going to have an E-score of 1. It's only sold once in the last 3 months. It hasn't sold at all in the last year. Again, a small drop in rank. It just means it was getting refurbished. Amazon was probably removing or decluttering the marketplace. This is not a sale. A sale would drop to about 100,000 as it did here. So in this case, this book is not selling very often. I'm going to, I don't even know if I believe the price of 100. The lowest it's ever been was in the $40 range, 40 to 50. It didn't sell for a couple months. The market price went back to 200. It still didn't sell. Came back down to 50. Someone bought a copy right here, and the price jumped back to 100. So this book, I don't think it's a matter of price. Maybe if you dropped it to 20 bucks, someone would buy it. I just don't think there's buyers on it. If we went back to a whole year, it did sell several years ago, back in 2015 in the $15 range. It did sell again in the $12 range, and then in the even $4 and $5 range. Looks like it did sell a couple copies, maybe a little higher, 30 or 40. But realistically on this book, it's not selling very often. I want to be the next sale, and probably to get that sale, I'm going to ignore the $99 books. I'm going to come in at 29 or 39. And again, maybe someone will buy my copy thinking they can buy it for 30 and flip it for 100. Whether they don't understand Keepa or whether it's an automated system, I don't know. But I don't see evidence to support that it'll sell quite likely at 100. Frankly, I don't know if we dropped it to 20 if we'd get the sale either. Okay, good ones as well. Let's look at a few more. Again, if you have other questions, feel free to put those below, and Matthew will share those with me as well. All right, here's a hockey card practice guide. We're looking at 129 bucks. Again, the rank's about 2 million. There's only 12 people on it. That's not a ton. If there were 50 people on it and the price was 100, that's more realistic because supply and demand, if a bunch of people are on it, they're going to undercut each other until the sales happen. But let's look at Keepa and see what's going on. This is interesting because someone's on it for 130, then 240, then 240. Let's see what Keepa tells us. Let's go out to a year. So here, Amazon was on this listing, the orange line, for the $20 to $30 range. It sold a few times. It doesn't sell a ton. Amazon went out of stock, and they haven't come back on in several months. The last they were on it was in late May or early June. So this sold a ton in the $4 to $5 range plus shipping, and then the market got bought out. You can see more historical data. We can actually see the number of used sellers was only 3. So pretty much people bought out the supply of books. Now more people are coming onto the listing, but it's certainly not selling. This has not sold in the last several months. The reason for that is it's just too stupid high. No one's going to pay that much money. So the evidence to me doesn't support that this is a $100 or even $200 book. I'm probably going to come in. Again, I might try a skimming strategy, come in at 99. Maybe someone will get it. Maybe 49 is more realistic. I think in order to sell this, you're going to have to realistically come into the $25 to $35 range. Let's look at some more, and then Matthew's popping some questions in as well. So here we've got a couple. I'm going to guess we're going after the book that matches the ISBN. So 462, not that one. 462. There we go, 4627. Here's the book we're probably looking at. This is probably a textbook, just eyeballing it. Mathematics. It's not that expensive. It's a $6 book. Amazon's on it for 117. So there's that big range. That's our floor to our ceiling. Let's go look if it's selling. So again, I want to look at where are we looking at. We're somewhere between 6 plus shipping, so 10. Amazon's on it for 165. So we're going to price somewhere in that range. This book is selling a ton. And again, it's a textbook like we thought. The rank's under 10,000 come textbook season. Let's zoom out to a year. We see that nice smile pattern, and we see the smile pattern again. So based on that, I don't see the black line going up a ton during textbook season. So there might be too many people on the listing, frankly. Let's see how many sellers have been on this. Yeah, well over 200. So in this case, we're probably not, like the price isn't as likely to move as if there were 50 sellers. So I'm probably not going to focus on trying to get the most money out of this by waiting for textbook season. I'm probably going to try and move it in the next 5 sales. So we know that it's at $5 plus shipping, so it's a $10 book. Because it's a really high velocity, it sells pretty well in the off season as well. And we're in the middle, we're right at the tail end of textbook season. I'll probably ask for $40 or $50 if I can. So let's go look at prime prices. So my target's 40 or 50. There are some rentals on this as well. You can filter those out if you want. Just look at used. So my target's probably 40 or 50. The date is not going to. Oh hey Romer, what's up? So we're going to look at again, if there's 3 or 4 or 5. I like to be in the lowest 5 sales because we see 3 people all within a penny and rent use one of those. They probably have a lot in stock. Because of that, I'm probably not going to undercut that because they're just all going to beat me as well. I'm probably going to be 4th or 5th in line. I might come in at $17.50 and just try and be 4th, or I might come in at 5th at $19.80 and just wait for that sale to come to me. So I'd like to get 40. Realistically, the market price isn't going to give that to me. There's at least 10 offers under 25. So I'm probably going to tuck in at 19 and change and wait for that to happen and be happy with that sale as well. Got a couple more, and then Matthew's popping some questions in. They're good questions, people. And as you can see, again, there's not one rule. I don't just see this price and say, hey, this is exactly where we price it. We really have to look at what the market's doing. So my floor is $2 plus shipping, so probably 6. Amazon's on it for 24, so we're going to price between those. Let's look at volume. And again, Keep is going to default to 3 months. We're going to look back at a year. It's not selling a bunch. The used price doesn't move a whole lot. It's in that $2 to $5 range plus shipping. It's not selling a whole bunch, so because the velocity is low, I'm going to price at the $6 point or a little higher. My target's probably going to be $9 or $10 prime. Let's go look at where the prime people are on this particular listing. They're at 24. I don't think that's realistic. So I could, again, you might go, hey, I want to be the lowest 5 prices. I'd love to price at 39 and be number 2 in line. Great, but only one person's bought this book in the last 3 months. If we zoom back out to 6 months, September goes back to March. 4 people have bought it, 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 or 5 maybe. So we probably got 4 sales. I don't really want to be like, and again, if someone can buy this for $2 or $3 merchant fulfilled, 1 out of 10 might pay a stupid premium. They might pay $40 or $50. But that you have to hope that one seller comes along. Maybe it's 1 out of 50. So we want to be really careful. And I would probably price this in the 10, maybe $14.95, but I'm not going really any higher than that. Whoever this is at 24, they should probably be at 25 to try and get the free shipping out of a non-prime buyer. Otherwise, I don't see any justification to ask for that much of a premium when the volume is that low. Look at one more, and then we'll answer some questions. So for those of you sharing, thanks for that. Oh, that was not on Amazon. It was not the book category. Nope. Okay, maybe we got a wrong digit. Let's try this one. That one's not there as well. So whoever posted those, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Let's look at some of the questions here. What do I think of Amazon repricing? Amazon's repricer is okay. I haven't tested it out enough to know. I've heard some people complain that it doesn't actually reprice up, and then I've heard that people say it does. I haven't tested it for myself, so I can't speak one way or the other. I will say the one downside of Amazon's repricer is they don't have sort of a staggered method to reprice. So if a market price is $50 and you say, hey, I want to be the used buy box, again, Amazon can see more data than any other third-party repricer, which is nice, and it's free. So hey, who doesn't like free? However, you sometimes get what you pay for. So if I'm on the listing saying, hey, I want to be the buy box at 50, and that's where it is, and let's say the lowest used is 30, so I want to get 50. What happens is if somebody else comes in and uses Amazon's repricer and says, hey, I'm fine with a floor price of 12, and let's say they come in right at 12 and you said, hey, I don't have a floor, maybe my floor is 10, and I'm just going to go match them. Amazon's, most repricers will kind of slowly go down. You'll see the keep it line chart where it goes down slowly as people reprice over the matter of several days, and maybe you kind of beat each other by a penny and slowly work your way down. With Amazon's repricer, it can happen overnight. So if you say, hey, $50 is where I want to be, but I want to match the buy box down to as low as 10, if someone comes on that listing for 12, I think Amazon's going to drop it right away. And so you're going to blow that out. Again, buy box might be all that matters when it comes to FBA. But it remains to be seen whether it'll go back up. Other repricing software, if it detects that $12 offer sold out, you were a little bit higher, it may push you back up. Whereas I don't know if Amazon's will or not. So again, I really can't speak to it outside of that. I do know that it will drop quite a bit in one shot, as well as, do you really want Amazon having your data and knowing what you're willing to sell an item for? Where can you find your turnover rate or turn rate on Amazon? There's probably buried into some reports. The easiest way to do it is pull up the last week or last month. I love looking at weekly numbers. Don't look at daily. You'll go crazy going, hey, I sold 0.04% of my inventory yesterday. Cool, but look at a week. Give yourself some data. Do it weekly because then you can adjust and track. But just go into your seller, your reports tab or your whatever your dashboard's called. I forget what they call it on Amazon. Look at that. Pull up the last week and just look at how many units you sold. Then you can pull your inventory health report, see how many units you have in stock. So if you had 5,000 items in inventory and you sold 1,000 in 1 week, that's tremendous. You take 1,000 divided by what you had at the beginning of the week, over 5,000, that's a 20% churn rate. So that's just redneck. You mentioned to use an extension to show the rank. What is it? Which one is it? I think it's this one. I think it's called DS Amazon Quick View. That's a free extension. You can see the rank. Simple FBA is supposed to show you the quantity. I don't know if it's not working. Of course, use Keepa. It's really good. ZenHub for you GitHub users, that's pretty cool. But that's a good extension there. And then within Keepa, let's actually try it within Keepa. Sometimes you can see the quantity. So if you go into your Keepa extension, I guess I'm not logged in. I don't know why it's working without that. At any rate, there'll be an option there where you can turn on the quantity, and that'll help you a little bit. Other questions? How do I deal with signed books? Do you put them in the collectible and hope, or just flip them to eBay? Amazon is not eBay. It's really hard to sell collectible inventory, and I've tried it. We've got a test running right now where we're selling a book for an author, and we've got his books listed with his permission in new condition, because they are. In like new condition, because why not? We're going to go after the used buy box, and we've got a bunch listed as collectible. We've sold a handful. He's going to get some media coverage and hopefully sell a couple thousand of these in the near future, and we'll get a really good data set. We haven't sold any collectible. I used to list stuff as collectible. I don't think people look for it because it's hard to find in the search options. So eBay is great if it signs. You know, if I have a signed Ernie Harwell book, Detroit Tigers broadcaster, yeah, Detroit, I would just treat it as normal. We can go look at this particular one. Thanks for sharing the ISBN. So Ernie Harwell, it's a cheap book. It's $350 plus shipping. The rank's not all that great, so it's okay. I mean, that's the hardcover. I don't know if you have the paperback. Let's just look at paperback. You know, this particular item, again, collectible doesn't always show up on the side, maybe because it's not there. So maybe you didn't list it as collectible. This particular book is not selling all that often. It's only selling 4 times. 4 drops in green, maybe a 5th right there. It could just be a reset. It's probably a reset. So 4 times. It's not selling a bunch. If it's truly signed, someone's not looking on Amazon. They're looking on eBay. When exactly is textbook season? Are they worth waiting for? And is there a big influx of used books at that point? Are you better off selling when there's fewer used books? We could do a whole chat on this topic. Textbook season in general, I think we had one in there. Textbook selling in general is August 1 to September 15. There's a little bit of a bump in mid-December, and there's another nice bump in January. I thought we had a textbook somewhere in here. Bear with me as I go back through my slides. I'll have to pull one up. Again, you're looking for that smile pattern if it sells a lot. Here we go. So if the rank, it's really good. You see that smile pattern where the rank's under probably 10,000 in this case. That's a good sign. You may want to wait for it. You also want to see what the black line is doing. So in this particular case, the used price went from 15 to 40 within a week or two. When you see the price movement, that means a lot of the sellers sold out and the price went up. If I see this and I'm anywhere near September, I'm waiting. I'm not going to price at 15 or 20 where the market is right now. I'm going to price at 40, 50, 60, hoping to get that sale later. In January, we see that the price actually went down at the beginning of the season. People were rushing to get the sale, and then it recorrected. The lowball sellers sold out as demand caught up, and it went back to 20, but it didn't spike to 40. So this particular book, if I'm close to September, the fall, this is a better fall book. For whatever reason, you can see the smile is wider, or the season lasts longer than the blip here in January. So if I'm waiting in August, September, if I'm willing to wait that long, I can probably ask for a much higher price than in January. Is getting the buy box as simple as being the lowest FBA seller? Ish. Amazon has a ton of rules that play into it. Do you have to be established to get this? I've heard people saying both ways. If you're just launched, if you don't have very much feedback, you're probably not going to get the buy box. And we'll often see the buy box at 20, and there's other prime sellers at 18 or 17 that say just launched, or their feedback is pretty bad, usually under 85 or 80%. The only way to do that really is to get better metrics. So make sure you're taking care of the customer and pursue some feedback as well. And that will help you get the buy box. Outside of that, you do have to be a pro seller. So for those of you trying to save money and not be a pro seller and save the $40 a month, you're going to probably double your sales, at least based on one of the larger sellers looking at his data when he didn't have the buy box. So you want to make sure you can get that buy box. You need to be a pro seller. Selling prime does help. Even if the prime offer is stupid high, it'll show up in the API, even as $2,000. Sometimes Amazon will suppress that buy box if they don't like the offer. They're trying to protect the customer. So if it's a $10 book and you're asking for $2,000, a lot of times they'll hide the buy box. And if you price at a more realistic price, they will show that as well. And one or two more questions. What's the least amount you want to make on a book when sourcing? $4, $5, $6 higher? It depends. Matthew and I just did some recording. We actually went to a store and looked at some books. If the book is selling a lot, I'm fine with a small margin. I don't really care about, especially at a thrift store, I don't care if I'm spending $1 or $2 or $3. I'm more looking at profit per book. So to your point, do I need to make $4? Not necessarily. I do think you should spend your time sourcing more expensive books if you can. You'll work less. You'll make more money. It's the 80-20 rule in a nutshell. If it's selling a lot and I can get a quick $1 or $2, if I'm sourcing, I'll probably go for that. If it's selling a medium amount, I need to make 2 or 3 or 4. And if it's not selling very often, I need to make at least $8 or $10 to even be worth bringing into my inventory. All right. Thanks for your time. We went a little over 75 minutes. Again, this will be up on YouTube later to watch. Hopefully that helps you. Just, again, we're not going to answer all your pricing questions. This is still something we're trying to sort out, figure out, and fine-tune. If you have any comments or you have any ideas you want to run by me, again, you can reach me at thebookflipper@gmail.com. Thanks for your time. Hopefully this was helpful and gives you a little bit of a rule. Again, if we were going to sum it up, it's pricing matters. If it's not a textbook, I like to be in the lowest 5 offers. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the lowest used price plus shipping and Amazon's price. That's my range. I'm looking at the historical sales or the sales velocity. If it's low, I'm going to price really close to that merchant fulfilled offer. If it's in the mid-range, I'm going to ask for a small premium. And if it's selling all the time, I'm going to ask for a large premium as a target price. From there, we go look at the market prices that are there. If I wanted to price at 50, but all the market prices are at 20, then, well, you could price at 50, but it's probably not going to happen. You might as well price where the market is. And then, again, stay away from Amazon. So thanks for watching. And we'll be doing these monthly here in the Book Flipper community. We may do some YouTube lives in the future to try and open it up for those of you who have gotten off Facebook, which is good for you because, well, Facebook. So that's it. Have a good day. Go find some books. Enjoy this last week of textbook season. Adios.